what questions do you all have for our panel? They can be broad questions. They can be very specific technical questions. Anything that you want to throw out there for us. I did see that someone, and I saw, Bill, that you answered this in the chat, but I thought it was good to point out that some people will video their podcasts to put the video on YouTube and then pull the audio to load as a podcast. And I think there was a question of, have you ever considered doing a video one to go with your
Yeah,
audio?
no, we have faces for audio podcast.
I have found there is a cable though that I've been playing with and still working out the kinks, but it basically, you could plug a mic into it and then it runs to basically a headphone jack, the 3.5, and has where you can plug in your headphones. The only problem with that is the volume's not that great, and so I'm working with different little things to work with that. But if it's live you're wanting to do, that's one thing, but if you're wanting to do a video, you can edit the audio later to up it. But if you want that information, just let me know. It's maybe $20 or something like that. So that could be an option.
But yeah, most of these podcast hosting sites will allow you to do video, but really the best place to do the video podcast is YouTube. You can't beat that. Apple is the king of the audio podcast, but it's YouTube that pretty much dominates the video webcast. Of course, there are other, depending on what kind of content you're wanting to do, Twitch and things like that. But Twitch is mainly for gamers.
I will add in one thing. Again, this is just my own personal experience. I haven't done podcasting yet, but as I mentioned, I do a fair amount of video, and you all know that. You see all the videos that I get to help put together. But I will say, when you all were talking about microphones, and you mentioned that some of them are around $100, that sort of thing, it's worth investing in a good mic. I have invested in cheap mics, and it's not an investment. It's addition to the landfill. So doing the research on your equipment and maybe making a little bit deeper investment than you initially thought you might pays off in the long run, because it lasts longer, it makes better quality, it cuts down the length of time that you're having to do some of that editing piece, because it does some of the work for you on the front end. Wouldn't you all agree with that?
Michelle,
Yes.
I have learned that it's just easier to wait and see what Bevel does and then follow suit. That way I don't have to do the research.
You know,
I think he's my partner.
We each have our gifts and our roles, right?
Yes.
and if you're not ready to invest $100 or more in a microphone, the Shure SM48 is a little bit cheaper than the SM58, and all the reviews say it's, to the untrained ear, you're not going to hear a lot of difference.
Yeah. I also saw recently Behringer put out a cardioid dynamic that's $25, maybe 30, and it's getting good reviews. I might pick one up just to try it out. So that also would be an option.
You guys talked about RSS feeds and, podcast hosting websites, but what if somebody wants to add their audio recordings or their podcast to their church website? What's a good way to do that?
I just went into our website and put a link to our Anchor page. And then that way they just click the link. It takes them right to the page and they can do everything. And I put that link on all our emails that goes out and everything like that. That way at any given time, people have access to everything that we do.
And I really think that question is answered best when you ask, who is hosting your church website? Because most of these hosting sites now have an option to upload your audio there. And some of them will even publish to Apple Podcast now as well. I know that Clover Sites does that.
Gary asked in the Q&A, for those who would like to do video devotionals, what would you recommend for a decent low-cost mixer?
Behringer makes a lot of good quality, low-cost mixers for a video, for doing video live video like that, if you're not going to have a guest on there, I think they make a 2 XLR USB mixer that's probably, I think, around $80 or $90.
Yeah, so that's the one that we just upgraded, and that's the Behringer we've been using for a long time. The preamps are really good, and kind of that cable I was mentioning earlier, you can plug that into the output for video, and that would definitely be helpful. So just contact me if you want. I could send you all the links to that and try to figure out with the least amount of money.
And what I was going to say is if it's just one person doing it and you're kind of in a semi-controlled environment, cell phone, just using the audio and the video on the cell phone works great. I actually bought a kit off Amazon that my cell phone snaps into, and it has a microphone. And during Holy Week, that's what we would do, is we would use that to upload video devotionals, and it worked great, had great turnout and great audio and video. And I think it was like $50, something like that. So.
And I do a daily devotional on Facebook Live, and I just use my Logitech headset, a USB headset with a microphone. If it's just you and you're doing something quick like that, I don't think you need to go and break the bank in order to do quality.
Yeah, and you also can record on your iPhone in 4K and then later upload it. So that's an option if you want more video quality as well.
Yeah, Gary just said that he's been using his iPad with a wired lapel mic, and it seems to work pretty good.
So speaking of, just contact them and they'll share information. They have all shared all of their information here, so feel free to take a picture of this or make note of it. So if you think of something later and you want to follow up and chat more with them, they're all very passionate about this and excited to share what they've learned and what they've researched and their own experiences. So feel free to make note of this. I am grateful to this panel. It's been very informative and helpful, and hopefully will be a good foundation for people to build on to start using this medium to reach new people. And I'm thankful for all of you that have attended this morning. We'll hang on for another minute or two if there's any further questions that folks have.
We have a few more.
Okay.
We had a question on how many podcasts would you offer in a month?
I think that depends on how much time you're willing to spend. We do a weekly podcast, and I know that I spend anywhere between 4 to 5 hours in the editing bay, getting a podcast ready. And right now I'm dealing with screen fatigue from all the Zoom and everything, and spending 5 hours in the editing bay is just it's not something that I look forward to at the moment. Before all this happened, it didn't really bother me at all. To spend it was actually kind of fun. Right now, it's just screen fatigue.
That's a great point. There's a lot more that goes into planning it and producing it than actually recording it. So if you're going for a 30 to 45 minute podcast, you have a lot of before the recording and after the recording that takes up time too. So depending upon your time availability is what it is. And depending upon your audience too. I mean, Bill mentioned screen fatigue, but there's also that fatigue that we have from having to get everything either audio or visually done too. And so if we're pushing out too much content, it could be difficult. I just started listening to a new podcast that was going to release once weekly, and it was an hour to hour 15 weekly, which is a lot. And then they started doing them every couple of weeks or 2 a week or something like that. And so I can't keep up with that as well. And so when people are unable to keep up with it, things kind of get pushed to the side. So depending upon what you're offering and what you want to give, kind of depends. But Bevel and I aim for about once a month.
Yeah, and if I had to go back again, I probably would have gone bi-weekly. Two a month is a lot more manageable than 4 to 5 a month.
Another thing to do is to think about your seasons, because your season, at least your first season of episodes, can set the stage, but it could also give you the opportunity to change. So I'm already thinking about how we're going to change Flighty Thoughts for when we release our next season, what we're going to do, what we're going to add. And so depending upon how you choose a season, you can kind of rebrand or restructure yourself for that too.
For example, during Holy Week, I did the 7 last words of Christ. So I did one a day. And that would just be for a special. So you might, for Christmas or Advent, have a different style than just the liturgical year follow and see.
I think the big thing is do it as often as is fun for you. When it starts to become a chore, then it's no longer enjoyable. This is, yes, it's part of our ministry, but it's something that we're doing in addition, and so it should be fun and enjoyable to you. There was somebody asking if we're doing live or pre-recorded, and I'm guessing they're asking about the daily devotions because we're getting that below there. My daily devotions are live, but podcasts, the podcasts we do are not live. They're recorded live and sent out edited.